Is Luke's Gospel historically reliable? Luke's Gospel presents itself not as some mere story, but as careful history. It begins with a 4-verse preface written in high-class Greek dedicated to Theophilus, a high-ranking Roman, and it claims that the writer has checked out the facts that he records through extensive contact with eyewitnesses. But is this all true? Let's start with the text, the actual wording. How do we know that hasn't changed? We know the book hasn't changed over time because it became popular very early on. By the year 225, it had become so popular that it was bound together with the 3 other Gospels in a manuscript you can now see in Dublin. And before then, we know from the copies which survive and the way it was quoted and adapted by other writers that it was in wide circulation by the early 2nd century, and that what we have in today's Bibles is essentially the same as what they had back then. In fact, Luke's Gospel is attested in far more early manuscripts than you'll find for most classical historians of the time. Luke was a travelling companion of the Apostle Paul within 20 years of the ministry of Jesus, and wrote both this book and a sequel, the book of Acts, which talks about the early Christians. So Luke's Gospel was written within 1 generation of Jesus, and we can check out what he wrote at numerous points and see how reliable he is. Though he was probably hundreds of miles away when he wrote this down, he clearly knew all about the culture and the land of Israel, the names of villages whose names you wouldn't know unless you had been speaking to a local. He knows where the hills were, where sheep were kept, where particular trees like sycamores grew, and what the local Jewish groups believed. All signs of a careful observer. In fact, it's impossible to imagine how someone could get right all the local knowledge that he did unless they spent a lot of time investigating. And if he really did spend a lot of time investigating and could accurately record those details, then you'd have to rule out the view that the miracle stories came about by careless exaggeration on his part, or that when he wrote about miracles, he got it wrong because he lived in an age when people were simply more ready to believe that sort of thing. So why not read through the whole of Luke? You can read it in just over an hour, and as you do so, ask, what do I make of Luke, the writer? Was he a fanatic or a reliable historian? And the more important question, what do I make of the central character, Jesus himself?